Okay, let's check in with the bottom of the table, Matt. And we have an informal rule of thumb about not talking about teams that are a point per game or more, which at the moment now we may have to change that rule because that means we're only talking about four teams, and everybody will have noticed a 4 point gap going in already between 17th and 18th place, 16th and 17th place, excuse me, in the table, with Everton obviously going to Ipswich and winning. Look, we've spoken about various doomsday scenarios involving, maybe three teams get adrift at the bottom. And me, as a fan of one of the teams who's in that mix, you want as many as possible. But at the moment, it is with Leicester's kind of break for cover with the back-to-back wins. It is four teams down there, still with the idea that Wolves and Palace could make a break for it, but they are marooned in there at the moment. Let's work from the bottom up. Wolves still on a single point, and Matt, we didn't expect we didn't expect any points to go on the board, frankly, when you're playing Man City. And I'm just looking, is that all comps they've got on FootMob there? Okay, let's take out that EFL Cup game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defeats in a row. And they are conceding multiple goals in all of these games as well. But given the nature of it, can Wolves actually take anything that they took Man City to the 95th minute? And now we go to a run where their next three home games are Palace, Southampton, and Bournemouth. What's your take on Wolves? Can you get any positivity about taking City so close to the wire?
Yeah, they're going to have to because it's gone. It's gone now, and they're going to feel really raw after how late that goal was for the next couple of days. But once they've had time to sort of reflect on it and realise how close they came, and with the knowledge that, okay, they've got Brighton away next, which is also difficult, but then the fixtures do get nicer, if that is such a word in the Premier League. So I would say to the Wolves fans, it's given me more hope for you. I know you've lost the point you nearly had in the last minute. I mean, we were talking on the Sunday. I think we were like, "Oh, it'd be typical if Man City snatched that." And yeah, you got to feel for Wolves. I know it was a typical Man City dominating, Wolves hanging on, but they nearly did get out with a draw. But like I say, the fixtures will get a bit kinder. But the position they've got themselves into now, they do have to go out and get the wins to close that gap now. But yeah. It's as good a defeat as you can get, if that makes sense. I know, obviously, the manner of it, with it being so late, is painful, but they have gone toe to toe with Man City and held them. The only thing is with Wolves, I just think they do look that little bit fragile. I know this was an improvement, but it's late goals. They always seem to concede late goals. And defensively, their numbers are really not good. I suppose 2 against Man City is not that bad, but it's the other
No.
games. 6 against Chelsea, of course. So they go to Brighton. It looks a difficult assignment, but after that, the fixtures get a bit kinder. But like I say, the pressure's on. They have to start winning.
So we talked about the Leicester side of Southampton 2, Leicester 3 earlier in the show. Just absolutely disastrous for Southampton, this one, where you're looking for the first win. Again, it's a home game against a fellow promoted team, and they have now, Southampton, played Ipswich and Leicester at home and basically conceded the same goal in stoppage time to both sides, albeit Ipswich's one had a bit of a deflection on it. We did acknowledge that at the time, but you can just understand, Matt, Southampton fans thinking, "Oh my God, this is the worst. I hate this. This is done already," because it just feels really hapless. And from being 2-0 up, and okay, yeah, Fraser probably should have been sent off for the denial of obvious goal scoring opportunity, but there was one up the other end, which was I think it might have been Ayew who then didn't he go on and score the winning goal as well at the end of the game. So it just feels like, I don't know, somebody in the football universe is just sticking two fingers up at the poor Southampton fans every moment. But of all those sides down there, and we'll talk about Palace and Ipswich in a minute, but with Wolves, there's form for them not being near the relegation zone, and the same with Palace, and Ipswich have had some good performances. of all the teams down there, Southampton has got to be the toughest one at the moment, hasn't it, for those fans?
Yeah, this is brutal, Ben. It's really brutal. Yeah, like you say, it's the same goal. I mean, they can play well, Southampton. I'd be interested to know what the Premier League table would look like if football was just a 60-minute game, because Southampton seemed to do all right for quite a big portion of the game. Against Arsenal, they went 1-0 up. Against Ipswich, they were winning. Against Leicester, they were winning. But it's towards the end of the game. I don't know if it's the game management or what, or they just seem really vulnerable. But like you say, it's the same goal. It's a corner that comes in, edge of the box, and they don't deal with it. By the way, I'm comparing that Leicester goal that they conceded to the Ipswich goal, for those of you that don't know. So, yeah, they got Man City away next. And I look at that, if I was a Southampton fan, I'd think it's kind of like a lose-lose, because if they go there and play terrible, they lose 4-0. They could go there and play really well, go 1-0 up, but still probably lose as well. So, oh, bless them. I just really struggle to see a way out now. I don't want to seem too doom and gloom this early on into the season, but like you said, these home games against the other newly promoted teams, you cannot not win both of them and concede late goals in both of them. Yeah, I really struggle to see anything positive for Southampton here. I'm sure after the Man City game, there might be one or two nicer fixtures, but they haven't won yet, and just looks so fragile as well. I suppose that's a theme down at the bottom, isn't it?
So, Crystal Palace, we've been sat here kind of, well, certainly I have, Matt. I don't want to speak for you, put words in your mouth. We've been sat here kind of thinking, okay, Palace will start winning soon enough, won't they? They're brilliant at the end of last season, and they're, got very established Premier League quality. But they're not, and it was another defeat. They actually haven't scored in 3 of the last 4 games. Lost at Forest last night. I still have it in my head that they'll have a decent run, and by decent run, I mean they'll probably win, say, 3 games out of 7 or something like that, and throw in the odd draw or two. Then they're more than capable of doing that, but there's still that idea that if Palace were to do something silly and maybe at boardroom level here and make a bad call and then compound that with another bad call, that they could stay in this bottom 3. I'm not seeing it, Matt. But what's your take on Palace?
Yeah, I think with Southampton and Wolves, I've said they look fragile, whereas Palace, I think they've got more quality, and it just seems like they're not quite clicking. It feels like they're not far off, because they lost 1-0 to Forest yesterday. I don't think they were outclassed. If anything, Sells in the Forest goal had a really good game. He made a few good saves, and Palace could have come away with a draw. The week before, they lose 1-0 to Liverpool as well. That's not too bad. They're in these games. And if you look at the Premier League table, the goals against column, Palace have only conceded 11. All of the teams above them, Ipswich, Everton, West Ham, Leicester, Brentford, up to Manchester United, have all conceded more. So I think it's gonna come soon. I know it's gonna be frustrating for those Palace fans, and they're looking at the table thinking, "Oh, we're getting cut adrift here." But I think it will click eventually. I know they've got Spurs at the weekend. That could be interesting. They're at home for that one. It feels to me like they've got the players. I know good teams could go down, and if they keep losing, eventually, they'll be in a position where it's going to be difficult to turn it around. But I feel like they're close to getting something, and maybe Palace are one of those streaky teams that once they get 1 win, they get 2 wins, and they could move away. But I know we'll come on to your team in a second, Ben, and Palace slipping up for now is just keeping them above water.
Yeah, but you want to be out of the bottom 3 on your own merits, not other people stinking it out in the same way. By the way, Matt, November the 2nd, Wolves v Crystal Palace. That is the same day that Ipswich play Leicester. And I've just looked, Southampton play Everton on November the 2nd as well. It's like completely mental. Everyone down in the bottom sort of 5 or 6 playing. In fact, that might be the entire bottom 6. It is actually, isn't it? Oh, other than West Ham, because obviously Leicester have moved up a place. Hey, you could get a favourable West Ham result, and that could be the bottom 6 all playing each other on the same day on November the 2nd. Look, I've gone chapter and verse on Ipswich, obviously on the Blue Monday podcast. So we'll get your take on Ipswich now, Matt. But it's been a really poor couple of games for Ipswich, and do I want to use the word outclassed? I don't know if I want to use the word outclassed, but they didn't lay a glove on Everton, and it just looked like a team with lots of Premier League experience, an experienced Premier League manager, lots of quality, relative to a team that was in League One 2 seasons ago, and a work-a-day, straightforward win. And I don't know, Ipswich have been fairly, sort of fizzy and at it in the home games, and a bit of a worrying one. Ipswich need to get their mojo back. They go to Brentford next, and then there's that big home game against Leicester. But very worried now, Matt, that it's 4 at the moment, that it could go to 2. And I'm talking about Ipswich and Southampton. If Wolves and Palace get their act together, and you've got 2 marooned at the bottom, but Ipswich need to pick back up to what they were doing in the home games against Fulham and Villa. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to ramble on. I'll give them my take. What's yours?
That's all right. I was enjoying listening. Yeah, I think we've said with Ipswich, haven't we, Ben? Let's deal with it game by game. First 2 games, very difficult. They lost them. Okay. Next 4 games, some really good draws. And it felt as if they were building towards a win. And we kept saying, we'll see what happens next week. I think now, after 2 defeats that really weren't good and don't look good on paper, we can start to say this is not going as well. Certainly, there's been some good draws and good performances this season, but now it's you need that next win, because the table is starting to show that you haven't got a win yet. You're just above. I mean, the position Ipswich are in now, they're still above the bottom 3. It's like, I don't know, it's like you've gone out to the beach and you're floating out into the ocean gradually, but you're reassuring yourself that you're on top of a float, you're all right because you're above the bottom 3, but you're actually getting further away and you're just above the bottom 3. But like we said, if Palace get a result soon, or Wolves could string some results together, and that gap's opened up now. So Ipswich, I think they have to go out and get 1 win in the next 2.
Well, they've got a real Leicester in, haven't they?
I think it has to be that way around. Yeah.
If Ipswich can keep parity with Leicester next week, and the gap stays at 5 points, and they beat them, then all of a sudden you're within a game of Leicester, aren't you? Sorry, but carry on.
Yeah. No, I don't want to put it past Ipswich that they can't get anything at Brentford. I think, obviously, Brentford will be the favourites, and Ipswich haven't looked as good away. But if they go there, decent game plan, maybe they could get towards the end of the game with their hand on 1 point, and that'd be all right. And to be honest, even if they can if they got a draw from the Brentford game, they could close that gap to 3 points. So then it feels like, we're within 1 game of catching up to these teams. Once it's 4 points, that'll take obviously 2 games to close the gap. And the Leicester game, with the results Leicester are putting together now, they're putting the onus on Ipswich to beat them. Whereas a couple of weeks ago, we might have thought, I don't know, if Ipswich draw with Leicester, would that be okay? But now it's really starting to feel like Ipswich have to beat Leicester. Because, credit to Everton, by the way, a good win at the weekend. But they've been down there in previous seasons. They've had some poor results this season. And you thought to yourself, if you're an Ipswich fan, I know the Premier League's not easy, but this is one of the games where you might get something at home. So I was disappointed. But yeah, once again, as a neutral, really looking forward to the upcoming fixtures. I mean, like you say, is it the 2nd of November? We're going to have a relegation sandwich buffet by the sounds of it.
That's a relegation club sandwich, that, isn't it? Massive plate of it with chips on the side. So
I can't wait.
let's round this out then and say I think the best credit we can pay to Everton is to say we ain't talking about you anymore until we feel the need. But I do worry about this segment, Matt, especially if we get 4 teams turns to 3, turns to 2, etc. I mean, look, even if it turns to 2 going adrift, we've still got to talk about the third person in the underneath the red line. But get your views in the comments on the Premier League relegation picture, and definitely, I think we'd all agree, Leicester, the massive winners the last couple of games, and Everton as well, moving nicely up to a point per game. We'll clip that one out for the Benjamin Bloom Football channel, and you can check the whole podcast on this channel as well.